When my fiancé returned, he carried a memorial tablet, pleading with the emperor to grant him marriage to the daughter of a fallen general. He said coldly, "She is already dead. Do you still wish to vie with her for the empty title of primary wife?" Of course I would not compete. I watched coldly as he sat in mourning robes before her symbolic grave for 7 days, yet I refused to tell him he was a fool, manipulated like a puppet. When Shingue Hong returned from Yuning Pass, he knelt before the Zuangguan Hall, petitioning His Majesty to grant him marriage to Huo Lingshuang. Clutching the spirit tablet, he remained prostrate. "Your servant seeks to marry the daughter of the Huo family. I beg your Majesty to grant this marriage and permit her burial in the ancestral tomb of the Shin family." Emerging from the Empress Dowager's palace, I stood atop the lofty hall, watching him kneel with perfect composure, back rigid, his figure radiating utter resolve. The Battle of Yuning Pass ended in crushing defeat. 30,000 troops fell into the enemy ambush, perishing in Wangyue Gorge. That Huo family maiden came from a military lineage, training in the army alongside her father and brothers since the age of 16. In that battle, she too perished in Wangyue Gorge, her remains never recovered. My betrothal to Shingue Hong was arranged years prior. At that time, he had not yet met Huo Lingshuang. During the betrothal, he showed no reluctance. He always maintained his composure, never overstepping, upholding the decorum befitting a noble son. But meeting Huo Lingshuang seemed to awaken all his youthful impulses, making his likes and dislikes starkly evident. The sky darkened, heavy clouds gathered, and rain began to fall in an instant. I took the umbrella offered by my maid. Passing by him, I stopped 3 paces away, calmly observing his reckless actions. It was he who spoke first, his voice cold and mocking. "It's nothing but the hollow title of a lawful wife." "What? Do you still wish to contend with her? She died, killed by blades and spears, plunging to her death from the cliffs of Wangyue Gorge. Yet you sit high in the capital, basking in luxury and privilege. How dare you even compare yourself to her?" I stood beneath the umbrella, watching his disheveled appearance in the downpour, and spoke slowly. "And what of you? When she died, were you not also reclining on a soft bed in the capital, reveling in luxury? As a man, you failed to fulfill your duty to the nation. Yet now, after her death, you feign deep affection, a disgraceful spectacle." His gaze flickered, yet he remained stubborn. "You needn't waste your efforts trying to stop me. This time, no one can hinder me. I never intended to stop you. May you get your wish." As I walked away slowly, his eyes betrayed shock. He knelt outside the palace hall for a full day and night, drenched by rain and overcome by fever until he collapsed unconscious. Moved by his sincerity, His Majesty summoned him privately. What transpired between them remains unknown. Only this is certain: after Shingue Hong emerged from the palace gates, an imperial edict descended, granting his request. White mourning banners fluttered before the Shin residence of Shingue Hong, clad in black, solemnly performed rites for his departed wife. Few mourners came to pay their respects. Not a single member of the Wei family appeared, and those who had been friendly with the Wei family kept their distance. His actions had brought disgrace upon the entire Wei clan. Huo Lingshuang's symbolic grave was buried in the Shin family's ancestral tomb. He sat motionless before it for days, drowning his sorrows in wine. When he returned, his plain robes were dust-stained, his appearance gaunt and haggard. I stopped his carriage and said gravely, "The Wei family will come to discuss annulling the betrothal." At these words, his rage flared instantly. He snapped back, "Don't even think about it." Lingshuang knew this battle held little hope for survival. Before heading to Wangyue Gorge, she sent a letter. His gaze lifted slightly, filled with resentment and ferocity, before he continued, "Wei Juning, she feared discord between the Huo family and your Wei clan might prevent unity during the great battle. In the end, she truly perished in Wangyue Gorge. And the reinforcements? They were led by your elder brother. How convenient that they were trapped midway. He must have deliberately delayed their rescue." Did Huo Lingshuang say all this in her letter to you? Her letter only expressed worry that our two families couldn't unite. Little did she know her words would prove prophetic. His expression turned cold, his eyes filled with resentment. "That's why I'll never let you weigh siblings off easily. You wish to annul the betrothal? You're delusional. This marriage will proceed as agreed. You must marry him." Upon entering the household, you will kneel before Lingshuang's memorial tablet, prostrating yourself with each step, apologizing to her. A letter of pure fabrication, a few words of baseless conjecture, and yet they could make him lose all reason, unable to distinguish right from wrong. The eldest son of the Shen family, nothing more. My elder brother has always been upright and incorruptible, prioritizing family and country above all. If you possess evidence, present it before His Majesty. The Emperor will render a just verdict. To slander him with mere conjecture, relying solely on empty accusations, how laughable. Evidence? I shall find it in due time and present it personally to His Majesty. But until then, I will make life unbearable for both of you. He slammed the carriage curtain shut, and the carriage sped away. By the time I returned to the estate, dusk was falling. I had already persuaded father and mother that a marriage alliance with the Shen family was inadvisable, and they had agreed. From the moment Shen Guihong knelt outside the Xuanguang Hall pleading for an imperial decree, his path to marrying into the Wei family was utterly severed. My elder brother's letter had been dispatched urgently to the capital immediately after the calamity at Wangyue Gorge. The truth was nothing like Shen Guihong's wild speculations. The contents of the letter were shocking. The battle at Wangyue Gorge held hidden circumstances. The Shen family had sent envoys to discuss the wedding date. I was sitting by the koi pond in the rear courtyard when I heard the news. Stepping outside the main hall, I overheard Shen Guihong brazenly telling his mother, since Wei Juning is marrying as a secondary wife, there's no need for a lavish 10-mile procession. A simple ceremony, just going through the motions, will suffice. He stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes slightly raised, radiating arrogance. Shen's mother, hearing his insolent words, couldn't help but rebuke him, silence. My father, seated high above, was clearly furious. You good for nothing! My daughter from the Wei family is not someone to be bullied. This marriage is off. Shen's mother grew frantic at these words. Spotting me entering from the doorway, she hurried forward. This matter must be decided by Juning herself. If she consents, how could we elders stand in the way of true love? Her face lit up with hope as she looked at me, expecting me to contradict my father, defy his will, and declare that I would marry no one but her son. If I said that, my father would be utterly humiliated, and I couldn't imagine how triumphant she and her son would feel. I met her hopeful gaze and stepped inside slowly. She grew impatient, urging, Juning, what do you say? I glanced at father and murmured softly, it's entirely up to you, father. Those words caused Mrs. Shen's expression to shift abruptly. She had assumed that after years of betrothal, I still harbored feelings for Shen Guihong. Even if I was angry with him, it was merely a tantrum that could be soothed with a little coaxing. She said she wanted to speak with me privately and led me to the garden beside the house. Once, her face showed no trace of life's hardships, but now, upon meeting again, the marks of time were evident. She took my hand and whispered, I know my son acted wrongly in that matter and wronged you. Rest assured, in my eyes, you are the only daughter-in-law I recognize. No one else will do. I slowly withdrew my hand and replied softly, Mother-in-law, you jest. Shen Guihong has already married Miss Huo. Her symbolic grave lies within the Shen family burial grounds. By custom, she is Shen Guihong's legally wedded first wife. If you now privately tell me you do not recognize her, why then did you tolerate his reckless behavior back then? My son is too soft-hearted. He merely pitied Miss Huo for dying before marriage, wishing to give her a proper status and a place to rest her bones. The living must move forward, how could they compete with the dead? It would only become a laughingstock if word got out. Her words were gentle, yet her meaning was clear. She was urging me to swallow this bitter pill. I know you harbor resentment. The Shen family will surely compensate you in the future. She brushed it off lightly, treating my protest as mere childish tantrum. I refuse. What? My rejection stunned her, and she reflexively demanded an explanation. I said I refused to marry Shen Guihong. I want to call off the engagement. He was merely acting on a momentary whim, why such extremes? That Huo Lingshuang is already dead. Shen's mother looked utterly bewildered. In your eyes, your son is a rare gem, peerless in this world. Even among the sons of noble families, few can match him. So you were certain I wouldn't abandon him. That's why when rumors spread that he repeatedly journeyed to the frontier to lavish attention on that Huo girl, you never once disciplined him. Back then, why didn't you, or the entire Shen family, consider that he was already bound by a betrothal? She paled instantly, her voice faltering for a long moment before she stammered, I neglected it. It wasn't negligence, she simply dismissed Shen Guihong's romantic rumors as harmless trifles. I no longer bothered to point it out. My mind was made up. When we returned to the main hall, father showed them no mercy either. The Wei and Shen families both hail from the Huainan aristocracy. Only by standing together as one can we prosper. Today, we let petty matters ruin our alliance. Tomorrow, we risk mutual destruction. Mrs. Shen attempted to sway them with the Wei and Shen family's influence in court politics, but the Wei household had already reached a final decision. After retrieving the betrothal documents and the annulment papers, they departed the Wei residence. Yet as they left, Shen Guihong's eyes burned with dark, bitter resentment. Today's marriage annulment was not his choice. As he saw them off, a chill flickered in his eyes. Wei Juning, you wait. This isn't over. What your Wei clan owes Lingshuang will be settled in due time. I halted, meeting his gaze directly. Are you certain you know that Miss Huo well enough? Of course. She is loyal and courageous, decisive and steadfast, noble and upright. In my eyes, she shines like the sun. What if one day you discover she isn't the person you imagine her to be? No sooner had my words fallen than his tone turned icy. Lingshuang is dead. Put away your petty schemes and cease slandering her. He swept his sleeve and left. Watching his retreating figure, I calmly stroked my sleeve. I never slandered her. I only wanted to reveal another truth. I wonder what expression he'll wear when Huo Lingshuang returns. She isn't dead. She's alive and well, yet she can no longer bear the qualities he spoke of, courageous, resolute, and upright. Shen Guihong dispatched men to the border. His obsession was to avenge Huo Lingshuang. He was determined to obtain proof that his elder brother had deliberately delayed rescue, intentionally bringing ruin upon the Huo family. But he did not know that the imperial envoy, bearing the emperor's secret decree, had already set out for Yuning Pass a month prior. The truth behind the devastating defeat at Wangyue Gorge would soon be settled. Our grade and dynasty fielded 30,000 troops against Yan's 20,000. Outnumbering the enemy, victory should have been expected. Defeat was the unexpected outcome. Yan narrowly won this battle, yet their nation, long plagued by poverty and weakness, had been severely weakened. They could no longer endure the toll of war. Our dynasty's morale was shattered by this defeat. With 4 nations now holding their respective territories, continued conflict between Din and Yan would only lead to mutual destruction, allowing others to reap the benefits. Both nations now harbor intentions to cease hostilities and negotiate peace. Through diplomatic talks, they agreed to a treaty pledging no hostilities for 10 years. Neither side could endure the further toll of war. Prolonged conflict would only plunge their people into misery and suffering. Ceasing hostilities and negotiating peace was the inevitable course of events. Shen Guihong presented his memorial in court, pointing the finger squarely at his elder brother. He openly declared before the assembly that the catastrophic defeat at Yuning Pass stemmed from his brother's deliberate delay in sending reinforcements, a calculated act to squander the opportunity for victory and settle personal grievances. His Majesty issued an imperial decree summoning his brother back to the capital. Upon his return, his first act was to enter the palace and present himself before the emperor. Upon returning to the Wei residence, he shed his armor, changed into civilian clothes, and shut himself away, refusing all visitors. Rumors swirled throughout the court and the realm. After his audience with the emperor, my brother remained secluded, effectively under house arrest. Some noble families in the court gradually distanced themselves from the Wei household, deliberately keeping their distance. I accompanied my brother in the mansion, quietly watching the flowing water, awaiting the final outcome. For days, we played several games of chess, neither gaining the upper hand. He remarked my skill had surpassed my former self. I could sit with him, but others could not. Shen Guihong repeatedly petitioned the emperor, demanding my brother be imprisoned, held accountable for past crimes, and justice served for the Huo family. Faced with such pleas, the emperor offered no rebuttal, only emboldening Shen Guihong's audacity. When I encountered him at the Fengyan tea house, his words carried a hint of satisfaction. How rare that you still find leisure for tea. Soon, I shall appease Lingshuang's spirit with your brother's life. The entire Wei clan will be implicated in his crimes. The men he dispatched to Yuning Pass must have reported back, granting him this newfound confidence. If my guess is correct, they should be returning to the capital with the so-called evidence right now. Watching him now, blinded by hatred, I merely replied slowly, "We shall see." 3 days later, Shen Guihong truly brought his so-called witnesses and evidence to court, publicly accusing my brother. My brother faced a barrage of attacks in the imperial court. 3 men make a tiger, slander can destroy a man. They sought to pin the blame for this defeat entirely on my brother. A defeat demanded a scapegoat to appease the subjects. Yet the commander and vanguard of that campaign were members of the Huo family. Shen Guihong, unwilling to let the Huos bear the blame for poor command leading to disaster, would surely seek to exonerate them, making my brother his target. Just as Shen Guihong believed victory was assured, an unexpected turn arrived. The imperial envoy, who had been dispatched to Yuning Pass with secret orders to uncover the truth, had returned. He presented his report in court, delivering news that would shock the entire court and the realm. Huo Lingshuang was not dead. Upon hearing this, Shen Guihong was both astonished and overjoyed. Little did he know that an even greater shock awaited him. Huo Lingshuang had fallen from the precipice of Wangyue Gorge that day, and everyone had assumed her dead. Yet she had survived. Finding herself alive at the cliff's base, she could not accept defeat. She could not bear the deaths of her father, brother, and comrades. Unable to face them, she faked her own death to escape, hiding her identity in an attempt to evade everything. However, the emperor's men tracked her down in that remote town. The imperial envoy reported that Huo Lingshuang had confessed to all the details, willingly accepted her punishment, and awaited the emperor's final judgment. She was now being escorted back to the capital. A traitor had emerged within the Huo family's army, her elder brother's deputy commander, Xiao Yanin. She had personally recommended him to her father and brother, admiring his exceptional talent, loyalty, righteousness, and bravery. Over years in the army, he had repeatedly risked his life to protect her in moments of mortal peril. Gradually, he earned the trust of her father and brother, rising to become their trusted right-hand man. During this campaign, he insisted on leading General Huo in pursuit of enemy raiders, drawing the entire army deep into the heart of Wangyue Gorge. There, an ambush lay waiting, trapping them in a pincer movement. When she learned the truth, consumed by self-reproach and regret, she resolved to die alongside Xiao Yining in Wangyue Gorge. Her spear pierced his shoulder, and they plunged together into the abyss. Though she survived by sheer luck, she felt no face to return. If she could, Huo Lingshuang wished she had died, fallen in battle at Wangyue Gorge. Yet under heaven, all land belongs to the sovereign. Where could she possibly hide? Now that the truth was clear, the Huo family's guilt was inescapable: reckless pursuit of glory, trusting treacherous men, poor command. Her father and brother were dead, yet the Huo family's crimes remained. The dead were free from suffering, but the living must bear the pain. By hiding her identity and refusing to return, she had already become a deserter. She could not escape all the blame. My elder brother had once advised General Huo, but he refused to heed it. That day, it was not my brother who delayed the rescue, but rather Yan had come prepared, having long since blocked the path of reinforcements. When he returned from the frontier, he knew Huo Lingshuang was still alive. His Majesty allowed Shen Guihong to relentlessly impeach my brother only to see how murky the waters were in the court and where the loyalties of the great families truly lay. The order to confine him to his quarters also came from His Majesty. As for my marriage to the Shen family, His Majesty never truly wished it to happen. When Shen Guihong requested His Majesty to grant him and Huo Lingshuang a royal marriage decree, His Majesty simply went along with it. Both the Shen and Wei families hailed from the Huainan aristocracy. Another marriage alliance between them would create a tangled web of connections, a situation His Majesty did not desire. Shen Guihong never imagined the truth behind the crushing defeat at Wangyue Gorge would be this. After court adjourned, he walked out of the palace gates, utterly lost and disoriented. And I, coincidentally, was standing at the palace gates, waiting for my brother to finish court. Though I knew the blame for this defeat did not lie with my brother, I could only feel at ease once I saw him safe and sound. As Shen Guihong passed by me, his expression was distant, like a walking corpse. He let out a low, bitter laugh. Huo Lingshuang, you've made me a laughingstock. He halted abruptly, staring blankly at me. The moment he saw my brother, a flicker of understanding crossed his face, followed by a desperate demand. You knew all along she was still alive, didn't you? I nodded calmly. You watched me beg the emperor for marriage outside the Zuangwen Hall. You saw me build a symbolic grave for her, bury her in the Shen family tomb. From start to finish, I never uttered a word of protest. I stood by coldly, letting it all happen, just to see me humiliated today, right? To see me played like a fool. Does that make you happy? He seemed stunned by his own rage, no longer knowing whom to vent upon. Meeting his gaze, I remarked casually, when have you ever listened to anyone's objections? He froze, suddenly realizing, and muttered, true. I never have. Therefore, I never intended to dissuade him. Whether he and Huo Lingshuang shared any feelings, or how deep those feelings ran, I neither cared nor concerned myself with it. Whether he was deceived or simply foolish, it was none of my business. The merits and faults of this battle were clear. All that remained was for Huo Lingshuang to be escorted back to the capital for trial, and then the verdict would be final. Yet, to everyone's surprise, someone dared to openly hijack the prisoner. Huo Lingshuang was abducted in Yeqing, her whereabouts unknown. The emperor flew into a rage and ordered a thorough investigation. All eyes turned suspiciously toward Shen Guihong. The emperor clearly harbored the same suspicion. With the Huo family father and son dead, their influence gone, no one would risk themselves for Huo Lingshuang. Now burdened with guilt, the Huo residence was already surrounded by imperial guards. The only one with both motive and capability was Shen Guihong. His devotion to Huo Lingshuang was unwavering. He would have married her even if it meant taking a spirit tablet as his bride. Originally serving as Vice Minister of Revenue, Shen Guihong was dismissed by the emperor on a fabricated charge. Everyone knew this was a warning. If evidence were found proving he orchestrated Huo Lingshuang's abduction, dismissal would be the least of his punishments. Yet Shen Guihong paid no heed. He ordered the dismantling of Huo Lingshuang's symbolic grave, then drowned his sorrows in endless drunkenness at the 10,000 Ravines Pavilion. Yet his anguish stemmed not from his dismissal. Drunk beyond reason, he seized those around him and demanded, why did Lingshuang hide her survival from me? She was loyal, brave, and decisive, how could she be a deserter? On the battlefield, she never feared death. Tell me. He grabbed passers-by by the collar, but they dismissed him as a drunken fool and shoved him away. I stood at the doorway, but he was too drunk to recognize me. He grabbed my sleeve and demanded the same answer. I spoke slowly, because living requires more courage than dying. She feared not death, but life. Only after learning the full story did I grasp her dilemma. Hardened by military life and battle, she possessed more courage than most in this world. Alas, what awaited her next was not the slaughter and peril of the battlefield. Perhaps, as the imperial envoy had said that day, she truly wished to die in that great battle. To be wrapped in horsehide as a warrior's final resting place, that was the destiny of a military family. Yet she survived. And what awaited her in life was the cruelest fate of all. Returning to the capital for trial, she would have to confess with her own mouth that her father and brothers had been deceived by traitors, blinded by treachery, that they had been reckless in their pursuit of glory, negligent and careless, making them the guilty parties of this battle, that she herself had failed to discern character, had recommended the traitor, leaving behind endless calamity. How could she face the emperor's condemnation, the people's scorn, and her clan's reproach? Hearing my reply, Shen Guihong's gaze gradually sharpened. He murmured, truly, she fears no death but fears no one. You understand her better than I. He staggered away. My brother stood nearby, having overheard my words. He sighed, what a pity. I knew whom he meant. Yes, it was indeed a pity. Huo Lingshuang's abduction had been executed with ruthless precision, leaving no trace. This was a direct provocation of imperial authority. The emperor, enraged, ordered a massive manhunt. Yet strangely, Huo Lingshuang seemed to vanish into thin air within the borders of Din, leaving no further sign. Even with wanted posters plastered across every prefecture office, the search yielded nothing. Shen Guiheng was suspected, but without concrete evidence linking him to the crime, the matter was eventually dropped. After his dismissal from office, he sank deeper into despair, frequenting brothels and pleasure houses. This enraged the Shen family elders. The merits and demerits of the Battle of Wangyue Gorge had been settled. With the current truce between the two nations, a temporary peace had been achieved. Yet the three border cities, ravaged by war and slaughter, lay in utter ruin. The people were suffering, and everything lay in ruins, awaiting reconstruction. How to swiftly restore the economy and people's livelihoods was the matter that troubled His Majesty most. His Majesty ordered the reclamation of wasteland and the reduction of taxes, hoping to rapidly revive the economy and people's livelihoods in the three border cities. Yet a pressing dilemma now confronts them. The northern lands suffer from drought, making crop survival difficult and yields extremely low. Food is the foundation of life, farming and cultivation are the very essence of livelihood. A sound strategy must be devised to resolve this current predicament completely, only then can the local populace find peace. The entire court was deeply troubled. After father returned, he too paced anxiously in his study, troubled by this matter. To this day, no satisfactory solution has been found. If this problem remains unresolved, the long-term sustenance of the northern people cannot be guaranteed. Yet, I have already formed a plan in my mind. My brother could not bear to stay at home and has petitioned His Majesty for permission to journey far north to rebuild the frontier and fortify the city defenses. But mother is already selecting a suitable family for me, poring over the list in her hands time and again. As she browsed, she murmured softly, "A daughter of the Wei family need not worry about marriage. It is the Shen family who are unworthy." She spoke to me with great enthusiasm. The second son of the Shangwan family, a proper gentleman, learned beyond measure. He would be an excellent match. But I shook my head. She turned another page and chuckled softly. The eldest son of the Li family holds a position in the Ministry of Justice. Though young, he has already solved several major cases. She listed several more candidates, but none sparked my interest. Grasping my hand, she murmured gently, "Surely you're not still pining for that Shen boy, hence your refusal?" Hearing this, I felt a jolt of surprise. Never had I imagined such a profound misunderstanding existed. I waved my hands emphatically. "Mother, rest assured. I harbor no feelings for him, never have, never will." Hearing my resolute tone, mother finally relaxed. "That previous match was poorly chosen. I shall find you a suitable one in the future. I wish to accompany my brother to the frontier." The words fell, and the room grew silent. After a long silence, mother pressed, "Why this sudden desire?" "It's not sudden. I've felt this way since childhood. Father hired renowned tutors to teach me, but if my learning serves no purpose, it's meaningless. To benefit the world and its people, to apply my knowledge fully, only then does my education fulfill its purpose. The three border cities lie in ruins, awaiting revival. My studies could ease my brother's burdens and aid the local populace." My tone was resolute. Mother neither immediately rejected my idea nor agreed on the spot. I knew she needed time to accept it. Father also learned of my decision. Yet, surprisingly, he did not oppose it but agreed. At parting, father and mother stood at the doorway. Mother murmured softly, "It's good for you to venture out into the world. With your brother accompanying you, we needn't worry too much." Father spoke slowly, "Our family has women who ventured out to make their mark. We've always valued education for our daughters, not to serve the state, but to gain wisdom and understanding. Since you fear no hardship and choose this difficult path, your mother and I won't stand in your way." I bowed to my parents and set off with my brother and the escorting guards. The journey stretched ahead, vast winds, endless vistas. The journey was arduous, filled with the weariness of travel by land and water. My brother too had his doubts. He asked me, "Wouldn't it be better to stay home, living in luxury? Why subject yourself to this hardship?" When I was 16, I learned the Huo family allowed Huo Lingshuang to train in the military camp. I envied her. In a family of generals, there seemed to be fewer formalities than in aristocratic clans. She could choose her own path, not be a puppet on strings. Today, her merits and faults are not for me to judge, but at 16, she was fearless and brave. I gazed into the distance, speaking slowly. My brother's expression softened. I know your soaring ambitions. The Wei family is a ladder to the clouds. Mother asked me to tell you, pursue what you wish. My heart stirred. So they understood. Mother said the Wei family has enough proper, virtuous ladies skilled in household affairs. One who breaks the mold now and then won't hurt. My brother's face was full of teasing. I found myself laughing at his words. The three border cities were Jincheng, Jiangcheng, and Yangcheng. Located in the northwest, they were vast and expansive. My brother was stationed in Jincheng, and I naturally accompanied him. He had come by imperial decree to rebuild the frontier and strengthen its defenses. My brother had fiercely defended Jincheng during the war, fighting to the death to protect the people. He was highly respected throughout the city. Thanks to his reputation, the people treated me kindly as well. Yet I witnessed firsthand the hardships of their survival. Though the court had implemented numerous measures, reducing taxes, building irrigation systems, and encouraging agriculture through the Ministry of Agriculture, the people toiled diligently yet still went hungry. This is solely because the land here is arid, the winds fierce and sandy, making crops difficult to cultivate. Even when they do survive, yields are meager, and harvests are poor. That day, after father returned to the manor, he sat in his study troubled by this very matter. This is not only father's concern, but the emperor's as well. That day, I had an idea, but I did not rashly voice it. Now that I have come to Jincheng, I can naturally put it to the test. Shortly after noon, while he was still at home, I sought him out. Brother, I have an idea concerning the farming difficulties in the northern lands. He knew this wasn't a passing whim and smiled. Go on. I've studied the writings of our predecessors, synthesized the wisdom of past generations, and blended it with my own insights. I believe this method might work. The northern lands are arid and windswept, making it difficult for crops to survive. Even if they do, yields remain low. Thus, the farming methods of the Central Plains are ill-suited for the northern frontier. Why not try a new approach? Create furrows and ridges in the fields, alternating furrows and ridges. When sowing, plant the seeds in the furrows. The young seedlings will be sheltered from the wind and retain moisture. Once they sprout, push the soil from the ridges into the furrows until they are level. This way, the crops will be deeply rooted, resistant to wind and drought. The following year, switch the furrows and ridges to restore the soil's fertility. I approached his desk, sketching diagrams as I spoke. After studying them, my brother pondered briefly before asking, "Is this why you insisted on accompanying me to the north?" "Yes," I replied softly. "If you had this plan before coming, why not have father present it to His Majesty?" Proposing this method directly to the emperor in court would have been more straightforward. I shook my head. This method hasn't been tested in practice. If it succeeds by chance, it would be fortunate. But if it fails, disappointing His Majesty's expectations wouldn't reflect well on the Wei family. Besides, as a woman confined to the inner quarters, presenting this plan might not gain the emperor's trust or acceptance. It's better for us to test it first. Once we achieve results, we can then report it to the court. My brother understood my meaning. He spoke up, "I shall immediately order men to clear a plot of land in Jincheng. We will proceed exactly as you suggest and assign personnel to assist you." "Thank you, brother." News from Yan Kingdom arrived at that moment. The old emperor of Yan was gravely ill, and several princes were already locked in internal power struggles. Yet at this critical juncture, the third prince, who had been convalescing abroad for years, was summoned back to the palace. This third prince, vanished from public view for years, reappeared before the people. He gained the old emperor's profound favor and was enfeoffed as Prince Ding. Rumor had it the Prince of Ding's household held only one beloved concubine, who always wore a veil, shrouding her in mystery. The prince cherished her deeply, taking her wherever he went. One man had been slain by the prince's sword for uttering a single blasphemous word. But when brother spoke of these matters, he surely meant more than merely recounting the romantic rumors circulating in the streets. His expression held a hint of hesitation before he slowly continued, "Our spies within Yan have unexpectedly reported witnessing the King of Ding's beloved concubine. She bears a striking resemblance to Huo Lingshuang. My hand holding the teacup froze abruptly. In the days that followed, both my brother and I became deeply occupied with our respective duties. The plot of land my brother had cleared was situated in the eastern village. I often had to travel back and forth between the two places. My brother was consumed with military preparations and fortifying the city defenses. He erected crossbow platforms along the border, each as tall as the city walls, positioned 100 paces from the city gates, with equal spacing between platforms. Beacon towers were set up on high, strategically isolated mountains, the moats were deepened, and skilled craftsmen were tasked with extending the range of the chain crossbows. He was constantly on the move, never resting. Months slipped by in a flash. In autumn, envoys from Zhuang village brought welcome news. After adopting the new farming methods, the seedlings grew robustly. This autumn's harvest was bountiful, with yields per mu increasing from 1 hu to 3 hu. Upon hearing this, my brother was overjoyed, exclaiming repeatedly, "Wonderful! I shall draft a memorial at once and send it by swift horse to His Majesty." I distributed the harvest from the estate among the townspeople. Half a month later, an imperial edict arrived. My brother beamed at me, saying, "His Majesty has summoned the Grand Minister of Agriculture and relevant grain officials to review the findings. They all agree this method's success is no fluke. Envoys have been dispatched to first trial it in Jincheng, then roll it out across all 3 northern border cities. His Majesty also praised your diligence and exceptional intelligence, bestowing upon you 1,000 taels of gold." This truce between the two nations allowed Din to recuperate and restore the livelihoods of its border regions, a top priority for the court, naturally treated with utmost importance. Officials visited me one after another to inquire about this method, which would next be implemented citywide in Jincheng. Upon hearing that the new farming methods could triple yields from 1 hu to 3 hu per mu, the common folk were filled with enthusiasm, eagerly awaiting its arrival. This represented their new hope, no longer enduring hunger, no longer worrying about basic sustenance. I busied myself working alongside officials to implement the new farming techniques, studying local topography to adapt methods to specific conditions and resolve challenges. Time flew by, and then a major event occurred in neighboring Yan. King Ding died suddenly. Officially, it was reported as death from illness, but the truth was far from that. He was killed by an arrow to the throat, and the assassin was none other than his beloved concubine. Both perished together during a hunting expedition. My elder brother revealed that King Ding was none other than Xiao Yanin, the deputy general who had concealed his identity within our army years ago. His feigned illness in Yan was a ruse, his true purpose was to infiltrate the Din forces and gain their trust. I had already suspected this when I first heard news of King Ding and his beloved concubine. He was the one who abducted the prisoner. I heard King Ding had crippled her martial arts, turning her into a caged canary in the harem. Even so, it could not extinguish her resolve for vengeance. All her feigned compliance was for this day. Standing upon the city wall, gazing into the distance, I couldn't help but sigh. She remained the fiercely unyielding woman of old, unchanged. Since learning the truth, Shen Guihong had sunk into despondency. After being dismissed from office amid suspicion, his behavior grew increasingly reckless. Yet after so long in seclusion, he suddenly arrived in this remote place. He said, "All that happened before feels like a hazy dream. I never truly understood Huo Lingshuang, nor did I ever see through you. Many things back then, I was wrong. Protected by my noble lineage, I drifted through life in a daze, taking it all for granted. I never imagined you were different from me." His gaze was dark and heavy. He must have learned of Huo Lingshuang's fate. "I came to see what makes this land so different, what could possibly make you abandon your life of luxury. Then please, young Master Shin, observe this land well. Peace in all directions was Mishua's wish, times of harmony and bountiful harvests are mine." After Jincheng adopted the new policies, years of great abundance followed. The wind rippled through the fields, filling carts with bountiful grain. The villagers also brought fresh fruits and vegetables. Shen Guihong stayed here for a full month, witnessing the people living in peace and contentment, no longer suffering displacement, hunger, or cold. Before his departure, he said he might have understood. His Majesty personally decreed the establishment of grain administration offices in the 3 border cities, implementing the new farming methods throughout their territories. A court official personally delivered the edict, appointing me as the office administrator to oversee these matters. After receiving the decree, the court official beamed and said, "His Majesty places great expectations upon you." After the eunuch departed, my brother smiled. "Your reputation spreads far and wide across the 3 border cities. Both the court and the common folk hold you in high regard. Father and mother wrote, proud of your achievements. That you bring blessings to the people here is a source of honor for the Wei family. Having read countless books in the past, now traveling thousands of miles, serving the people is indeed my good fortune." I responded solemnly. Before long, the year's end approached. With this year's bountiful harvest, the people here were filled with joy and celebrated lavishly, far more lively than in previous years. Firecrackers crackled and crackled, bonfires blazed brightly. My brother and I stood atop the city walls, watching the people gather around the bonfires, singing and dancing. They chanted, "May the seasons be harmonious, and the harvests bountiful." Everything my brother and I had done found its meaning. When times are peaceful and years fruitful, nothing could be more fitting. End.